Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohio. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Pennsylvania gubernatorial and Senate primaries for the Republican Party. Both of the Democratic primaries for these races are pretty much decided at this point. For in the governorship, more likely than not, the Democrats are going to nominate Josh Shapiro. He's literally the only person who qualified for ballot access. He's the Attorney General of Pennsylvania and a former state representative. He's not a bad Democrat. He's relatively electable. I don't like him personally. I don't like his politics, but he is a good fit for Pennsylvania from what I've seen, and so he will be a tough opponent to beat in the general. So that brings us to the Republican primary, if we go down here and look at it, where we have several top contenders. Now, the top two contenders for this race are Doug Mastriano and Lou Barletta. Lou Barletta is the U.S. representative from Pennsylvania's 11th congressional district, where he retired, I believe, in 2018 because he ran for the Senate. He got the nomination, and he got absolutely destroyed in the general election by Bob Casey, a Democrat. Now, Lou Barletta, he was kind of screwed in that race. It was going to be Democrat. It was a Democratic favorable environment. Trump was not all that well liked nationwide, and as the Republicans as a whole were just not liked nationwide. Trump's approval rating was down. The Democrats ran solid campaigns like Pennsylvania, and Bob Casey's just a very popular Democrat. If it was any Democrat besides Bob Casey, the race probably would have been very close. Bob Casey, his family has a lot of history in the state. He's a more moderate Democrat. He has a lot of appeal to the blue dog Democrats in the rural parts of the state, which was Trump's base in 2016. And Lou Barletta, just with Trump's poor approval rating, failed to tap into that base, and as such, he got absolutely destroyed in the Senate race back in 2018. But that said, Lou Barletta has now come back, and he's attempting to run for the governorship in a race that I believe he is the best candidate in. Now, that's what, and it looked like he was going to be the nominee. If we go down here to some of the pollsters, for the longest time, Lou Barletta was leading, although there are a few polls that had Doug Mastriano taking the lead. And then out of nowhere today, we officially have received word that Donald Trump has endorsed Doug Mastriano for governor of Pennsylvania over Lou Barletta. Kind of a slap in the face to Lou Barletta. Lou Barletta was a key figure in Trump's 2016 win in Pennsylvania. Trump, if you did not know, was the first Republican to win Pennsylvania on the presidential level since 1988 when George H.W. Bush did. And Lou Barletta, being a congressman from the state and one of Trump's earliest supporters, he kind of helped get Trump's message out there and allowed Trump to very narrowly win the state. And then Trump endorsed him for the Senate in 2018. And a lot of people thought that Lou Barletta would get Trump's endorsement for 2022 for the governorship. But Doug Mastriano has ran a solid campaign, focusing mostly on election integrity. His big issue is that the 2020 election was stolen and that we need to end mail-in ballots, which isn't a bad campaign strategy for a Republican primary. I do question how well that will do him in the general. I still think Doug Mastriano, if he wins the primary, which based on what we see down here, it looks like he is going to. I mean, he's pulling ahead in all the polls, and after receiving the Trump endorsement, he's just going to keep going up from here. So it does look like Doug Mastriano is going to be the Republican nominee. And there's a lot of people on Twitter and online dooming, saying, "Oh, Doug Mastriano only focuses on the 2020 election. He's not going to win." The national environment is so good that at this point, I don't see how he can lose. I mean, Josh Shapiro is not a bad candidate, but he's nothing special. He's not great. And with an environment favoring the Republicans, I think your average voter is going to be basically going to be the 2020 election wasn't stolen. I'm talking about your moderate voter. Your average moderate voter is going to be like, yeah, 2020 wasn't stolen, but I agree with the Republican candidate on the majority of issues because everything costs more and inflation's up, so I'm going to vote for the Republicans. And plus, I do think that Doug Mastriano is really only focusing on the election integrity issue to win the primary. I think once he gets to the general, he's going to lay off that a bit. And I know he has some relatively controversial statements in the past. If you did not know, Doug Mastriano was actually one of the first people to begin spreading the QAnon conspiracy theory back in 2018. Do your own research on that. Not going to comment on that, but he is maybe a believer in QAnon. We're not really sure. Back in 2018 he tweeted about it several times, but since then he's been pretty silent on the issue. So long story short, he's more of for lack of a better word, a more conspiratorial Republican. He's focusing on the 2020 election and QAnon. Well, not really QAnon, but overall on the issues he's actually very solid. He's one of the best Republicans on the actual issues. It's just he's a little far out there sometimes, which we've seen in successful candidates like Kari Lake running in Arizona. Now Kari Lake's focuses on pretty much the same issues. She's very similar honestly on policies to Doug Mastriano, and she's probably going to win in Arizona by a lean to likely margin in a state that I honestly should be is less appealing to those kind of ideas. Arizona is a much more suburban state, with Maricopa County basically being where the entire state lives, and so the fact that Kari Lake is doing so well in Arizona running on these platforms says that Doug Mastriano should be able to win in Pennsylvania running on these same platforms. As Pennsylvania is a much more working class state, a much more pro-Trump state, and so I think Doug Mastriano, if he gets the nomination, he will win by a tilt to lean margin. It'll be closer than if Lou Barletta got the nomination, but I do think that Doug Mastriano is a solid candidate. I do like him a lot. I originally was not a very big fan of his, but I've read more into him now that Trump's endorsed him, and I do like him. I do have a much more favorable opinion of him than I first did. I would still probably prefer Lou Barletta, but honestly, Doug Mastriano, he's great on the issues, and I think that he will win the primary over Lou Barletta, and he will go on to win the general election by about a point or two. I think it'll be close, but I do think Doug Mastriano will be the next governor of the great state of Pennsylvania. So now let's take a look at the Senate election, where we also have some crazy stuff going on. We have obviously Dr. Oz, who received the Trump endorsement, and everyone thought that, oh, that was the seal in the bag. Oz was going to be the Trump was going to win. Trump endorsed Oz around here, and Oz got a solid surge after Sean Parnell dropped out. I like Sean Parnell. Sean Parnell was awesome. He was perfect for Pennsylvania. He was populist in America First, but he had some family issues going on. Him and his wife got divorced, and there's some not good stuff with him and his wife and his family, and so he said, you know what, I can't run for this race. I got to focus on my kids and my family, which, I mean, we respect that. We understand that, but, oh, he would have been such a good senator. So that's when Dr. Oz entered the race. And he began polling, obviously, decently. He had a very narrow. It was pretty much so many undecideds. Really, there's no one knew who was going to win. And then he got the Trump endorsement. He had a solid surge, and that was when David McCormick actually overtook Oz for a few polls near February, March. It was pretty much neck and neck, and then Oz had another surge around April. And David McCormick's an awful candidate. He is awful. He's running as this like America First populist Republican when this guy literally shilled for China. He shipped American jobs to China. He pushed for China to get involved in like the World Trade and Trans-Pacific Partnership. He's basically a neocon who shills for China because they give him money, and then running as this like America First kind of guy, which obviously as people caught on to that, and his shady past got revealed. He has a lot of shady past too. Like he's been involved in some scandals as well. Just not a very trustworthy guy. He seems like he's kind of grifting, kind of only doing it to get elected. I think if he's running as sort of like this America First populist type, like I said, but his history points to him being like a Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, absolute neocon kind of conservative. So I have never liked David McCormick. I've always been a fan of Dr. Oz, and I still am. But as you can see here, even as Dr. Oz kind of took the lead over McCormick as the scandals came to light, we see this other candidate named Kathy Barnett begin to have a massive surge in recent polls in May, based on Fox News, which isn't really that good at polling. So that was kind of seen an outlier. But then Trafalgar is one of the best pollsters out there. It's basically Trump's official poll for the Republican primaries and even the general. It was like the most accurate in 2018, 2020, and 2021 in Virginia and New Jersey. It was completely spot on. And they actually are also showing Kathy Barnett surge, as well as another poll showing Kathy Barnett begin to surge. And this comes as we're narrowing in on the race, where we have and it looks as the primary is literally on Tuesday. It's a few days from now, and this race is all of a sudden up in the air. It looked like Oz would probably get a solid win over McCormick. It wouldn't be a landslide win, but he would probably win by 5 to 10 points over McCormick, based on what I saw. Probably about Oz plus 5. Then Oz looked like he would be the nominee. But then out of nowhere, Kathy Barnett comes out of left field. I don't even know what happened. There was literally just this one Trafalgar poll had her at 23%, and then all of a sudden, just the entire conservative, every conservative that I talk to about Pennsylvania and that I've seen online has just gone from being like, yeah, I like Oz. Yeah, I'm kind of undecided. Oz has a controversial history, but I'm still probably going to support him. Just saying Kathy Barnett is going to be the nominee. Support Kathy Barnett. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm still on the Oz train personally. I don't see the issue with Dr. Oz. I think he's very electable. He seems like a solid guy. All this stuff. Really, the only issue I have with him is that he did vote in that Turkish election, and he does have a Turkish citizenship. But he has said he will revoke that. And several former Trump foreign affairs people have said that that's not an issue. It's not a concern to national security. So honestly, I don't have an issue with Dr. Oz. He has a liberal past, but so did Trump. 10 years ago, Trump endorsed Kamala Harris for Senate. In 2012, I believe Trump endorsed and donated to Kamala Harris when she ran for Senate. So Oz saying a few liberal things back in 2012 or so really doesn't bother me that much. And he's honestly, of all the campaigns I've seen, he's ran a great campaign. Kathy Barnett is definitely the next best option if she does manage to beat out Oz, which I don't think she will, but it is possible. Then I would still support her all the way. She seems like a great candidate, but she also has a very iffy past. She supported Black Lives Matter, the rioters and domestic terrorists back in 2016 and 2018. She wants to put up a statue of Barack Obama next to Abraham Lincoln. Now, I mean, I'm from Ohio. There's a lot of Obama-Trump voters, a lot of people that probably voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012 that are now fully on board the Trump train. So I can forgive being super pro-Obama, but I don't know. Oz is endorsed by Trump. He's ran a great campaign. And the biggest other thing about Kathy Barnett is that on her website, she said that she's open to amnesty for illegal immigrants. She doesn't necessarily say that she won't support that, which is a huge red flag for me. Immigration in a state like Pennsylvania is huge. So the fact that Kathy Barnett is kind of iffy on immigration, which is a huge issue, going to be a huge issue in the midterms, and a huge issue to me personally. I think what's happening in the southern border is disgusting, and so that's why I still support Dr. Oz. I think Dr. Oz should still win, although I will say this is going to be a very interesting primary. McCormick and Barnett both have solid chances at pulling off an upset, although I think all the momentum is with Kathy Barnett. I feel like this is kind of giving me 2022 Ohio Senate primary odds, where Oz is kind of the Trump-endorsed guy. A lot of people don't like him. Then Matt Dolan, or in this case Kathy Barnett, have a late surge. Everyone says they're going to win, and then they basically finish behind McCormick and Kathy Barnett kind of split the vote. So I would not be surprised if we get that same thing happening, where Oz is basically J.D. Vance, McCormick is Josh Mandel, and Barnett is like Matt Dolan. Matt Dolan or Kathy Barnett could get the late surge of Josh Mandel, a.k.a. David McCormick, has been kind of up there the whole time. And then Oz is the Trump-endorsed candidate who has a narrow lead and managed to win by 5 to 10 points. So with that, this is pretty much a quick analysis of the Republican primaries for Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania's governorship and Senate races. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to like and subscribe for more.